Thank you very much, and welcome to my speech on our journey to improve security, visibility, and collaboration. I did fly from Finland, and I've been at SaaS for 13 years, but I'm still considered a fairly junior person at SaaS, so 13 years is not a whole lot at SaaS. So I'm a product security lead. I work for our customer intelligence solutions, and I'm in research and development, and I've had a past life in security before those 13 years at SaaS. I did work for F-Secure, which is a Finnish antivirus cybersecurity solution company before that. And before I was a product security lead, I was an information security manager in the Nordics. I've moved around at SaaS quite a lot, but most of my time I've spent with customer intelligence solutions. I've been a technical architect. I've been in pre-sales, as said before, but I've also been in consulting. So I've been around the block quite a lot. One of the key points I want to make here, though, before I move into actually talking about my speech, my topic, is that I'm very much a generalist, and you might have gathered that because I've worked with different roles in different companies, but also within SaaS. And the tools and tips I'm going to talk about are more from a high-level perspective. So I'm responsible for not only research and development type of tasks, but I'm also responsible for operations in our infrastructure. And I also carry a hat for due diligence. So I also answer customer questionnaires. I have a few hats that I have on. Before we get to the actual topic, I want to talk a bit about SaaS, if you're not familiar with SaaS. Our vision at SaaS is to be the most trustworthy analytics partner on the planet. And our mission is to provide knowledge in the moments that matter. And we build various types of software products that have analytics in the heart and decisioning in the heart. You might be familiar with our SaaS Via platform, which is one of those. The solution I work with is customer intelligence, and to be more specific, Customer Intelligence 360. And that's a marketing platform which reimagines marketing with trusted analytics and powerful decisioning embedded. What's special about CI360 at SaaS is that it is the first true software as a service cloud-native product that we have at SaaS. It is hybrid. It's a multi-tenant software as a service offering as well. And what I mean by hybrid is the fact that not only do we deliver the software in the cloud, but we also have on-premises software. And there's a very important reason why we do that. We want to enable customers to access their marketing data wherever that might be. So we're slightly different from other marketing vendors, where other marketing vendors want to have all that data in their own cloud environment. We have on-premises software so that we can deploy it close to the data if it's on-premise. And we also have connectors to cloud databases so that we can interact with cloud databases as well. But that reduces the risk from a data exposure perspective as well, because we're not storing all that data that the customer might have. We follow DevSecOps methodologies, and we use CI/CD to deliver software and features to our customers at a high velocity. So that's the software, that's what we're going to talk about. And next, I'm going to talk about challenges that we've faced. SaaS is a very traditional software vendor. We've been here since 1976, developing software. And it's been commercial off-the-shelf software delivered in various forms to our customers. Then I'm going to talk about achievements that we've reached by using Datadog, and especially the cloud security posture management solution from Datadog, and how that enabled collaboration between teams that traditionally didn't really work together. And then finally, I'll finish it off with some lessons learned, and I'll give some tips and tricks regarding cloud security posture management and kind of things I think are good items to focus on as you're starting your journey with that software, because it might be overwhelming. So let's start off with the challenges that we faced. And this is also kind of a segue to what we achieved with Datadog. One big challenge, as I already kind of alluded to, is the fact that we're used to working in a certain way with commercial off-the-shelf software development. Our security organization can really be described as two different organizations within SaaS. We have the product security office, which is responsible for software security within research and development. They define the policies across SaaS and the standards across SaaS that we must follow to ensure that our software is secure when we deliver it. On the other side, we have cloud and information services, and they have their own security department that is responsible for our infrastructure security or corporate or organizational security. Now, traditionally, these two teams haven't really been working together. And it's obvious. When you're delivering off-the-shelf software, R&D develops the software, follows the security standards that they've set, and then they ship it out through the door. And now it's the responsibility of the customer to ensure that that software is securely deployed and the environment where it lives is secure. Now, we also have a hosting part of our organization. So they've been hosting these commercial off-the-shelf solutions since the 2000s, I think, early 2000s. But yet again, that works fine with this approach, right? Research and development develop software, and now SaaS is just a customer of research and development where they're getting the delivered software and they deploy it according to best practices. But when we switch over to software as a service, this paradigm kind of shifts. Now you have a common responsibility of ensuring security on your software delivery. So research and development, yes, there's security policies that apply to the software, but it kind of translates over to the other side as well. Your developers are responsible for the microservices that they develop. They're also supporting that from an operational perspective. So security transcends over to the other side. But then we have ops, which lives in cloud information services, and they need to take responsibility of the production environment and the security of that. And that may be challenging. That was challenging for us. The other challenges we faced was related to visibility. And there were quite a few of these which we faced. We obviously use a lot of different tools within our pipelines and within our secure software development lifecycle. We use various tools at various stages to do various things, like application scans, like making sure we're not leaking secrets anywhere or things like that. And we use open source, we use commercial tools, and all those different tools push out various different types of reports. And it can be hard to understand what your security posture is when you're looking at disparate reports from various different tools. The other challenge then related to visibility is that there's a lot of resources when you're delivering software as a service. You have dev environments, you have test environments. We have a global distribution of our environments for CI360. We're deployed in multiple global locations. So we have a lot of assets that we need to track in our production environments as well. And there was a speech about tech debt. Well, we're not immune to that, even though we're fairly recent with this. So we have different ecosystems as well. We have varying degrees of maturity with the services that we develop. Some of the ones that we consider legacy, even though they're cloud native, are on different ecosystems that were developed earlier. And that causes also a lot of different disparate data. Okay, so let's talk about achievements. Let's talk about what Datadog as a platform kind of gave us. Well, the real benefit of Datadog is that it provides visibility across all these different environments and across all these different tools. We're pushing results from various commercial and open source tools that we use for security into Datadog so that we can build dashboards and kind of understand what our complete security posture is. And we can also see the progression from development test and to production because we've enabled it on all those different environments. So if we're looking at posture, we can kind of see how development maybe doesn't have the most perfect security posture, but as we're moving closer to production, we can see reduction in findings. And that's really important. And it's also very important when you're trying to understand a source of a problem. Now that visibility then helps prioritize work across teams. You can attribute those findings to various teams and assign responsibility of those findings and think about how they should be fixed. And really, Datadog brings everything, and especially everyone, to one place. So both our development teams and our cloud and information security teams that are responsible for operations are working on the same tool. And that's really helpful when you're trying to remediate problems or look at security issues, when you can bring these teams together on a common tool to look at the findings together. And finally, when you're tracking things, you can track them over time. That enables trend analysis, and it also enables you to prove progress. So cloud security posture management especially, it's nice to look at the trend analysis and see that your security posture is increasing over time and that you're reducing your criticals or highs or mediums wherever you might be on that cycle. So we didn't initially use cloud security posture management by Datadog, but we were already a Datadog customer. And why we wanted cloud security posture management from Datadog was, well, first of all, we had a really good experience with Datadog already on the stuff that we were doing. So we were doing APM, we were doing centralized logging on Datadog, and the teams in both of those silos that I described were already familiar with Datadog. So it was fairly easy to add on cloud security posture management there when everyone's already familiar with the tool. And as you dig into the findings there, they're in a familiar space. They see the logs that they're used to seeing, and so on. Yeah, so having all those tools in one familiar place enables collaboration across the teams. Datadog really is that platform enabler there. So let's move on to what we learned on this journey as we're transitioning from traditional software development to software as a service. I'll talk about 3 different things here, kind of key learnings. First of all, I'll talk about choosing frameworks. Then I'll talk about our approach to findings and how we triaged those findings into various categories. And then I'll talk about how we measured progress and some new developments there as well. So when you enable cloud security posture management, it can be a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of different frameworks in there where you can track progress against. You've got SOC 2, you've got various CIS benchmarks, you have standards like ISO 27001, you have data-specific standards like GDPR, PCI DSS, and HIPAA. And I think it's important to consider what you go after first, right? Some of these findings might not be relevant to your business, but they might be relevant to your customers. So try to identify which of these standards are the most important ones, be it for your customer or internally, or the type of data that you're handling. If you're handling card data in your solution, then obviously you should look at PCI DSS. That's probably a high priority. When you've done that decision logic, in Cloud Security Posture Management, you can then mark those as favorites. They come on the top of your board, and it's easy to check when you go daily and go, look, what's my progress? How many rules are passing? How many are failing? Okay, our approach to findings. So something that I found really useful when working with Cloud Security Posture Management was having regular meetings. First, we had weekly meetings with stakeholders from these various teams to talk about Cloud Security Posture Management. And literally what we did, we opened the Datadog dashboard, and we started looking at Datadog and started talking about the findings that are on the dashboard. And based on the frameworks we chose, of course. So here's how we prioritize and kind of reduce the things that we need to do so that it doesn't become too overwhelming. And then what we do is we do kind of a triage on the problems. And we'd define 3 different categories of problems that we'd plan to work on. And the first one, where low implementation risk, but high impact findings. And that's what we tried to find by looking at those various rules. And you can see that when you're looking at the rules and talking with the teams, well, here's a finding. Is this something that we can implement with a low implementation risk? i.e., is it something where you just flip a switch and it's remediated? Or is it something else? And if it's a critical or a high, then you should definitely go after these first. It's simple to turn on. You can turn it on in development, make sure nothing breaks, and then just propagate it through the environments. An example of that might be blocking public access to your S3 buckets. Now, if you had findings like this, and you're really not serving content off your S3 buckets, that's simple, just turn it on. Finding remediated. The second category of problems that we tried to identify were high implementation risk, but high impact. Now, those are things that you can't necessarily do something about immediately, but you need to be aware of them, and you need to start planning out a strategy on how you address these. So you might need a migration plan or something like that to get through these. An example of that might be you find out your EBS volumes are unencrypted, and you need to go through a migration plan to get all your EBS volumes encrypted, and that might need downtime, which is bad. So plan those out and plan it out on a longer time span so that you can achieve them. And the final category is just high volume. If you have some resources that are very high in volume, you have a lot of findings on them, and you might have some findings that pop up later, even though you've gone through the process of mitigating them. Now, those are where you want to build your robots. That's where you want to make sure things are automated and maybe use some governance to ensure that they don't pop up again. I don't have a sample of that one because that varies by environment. And this is now showing the Cloud Security Posture Management kind of first page, which now has changed. We got news on the security inbox, which I think is brilliant because that really reduces the time that you need to look at understanding these different problems. So triaging is really the part that I just described. The tool now takes care of part of that. You can still dig into the details, but I think security inbox is really good. We didn't have that before. This is based on a previous version. The nice thing about this view is, and you can still get this from the dashboard, is you get like KPIs, simple ones that even a simple person like me can look at. And I can see my security posture score is this, and then when I go in tomorrow or the day after, I can see how that security posture score evolves. And this is something I can talk up the chain as well to show value and progress in cloud security posture management. And I also get a count on resources at risk. And if we go lower, then you have trend analysis on how the security trends look. Yeah, these figures obviously are from a demo environment so that we could get statistics. We don't quite look this bad, fortunately. But yeah, severity trends, another thing to keep an eye on to see your progress. And this isn't looking really good. It looks like criticals are creeping up, so probably something we need to do about that. Then you have the various detection rules, and this is usually where our conversation also focused on when we were talking about findings in our meetings. So we'd sort by criticality and how many failed resources we had, and then we had a discussion, is this something that we can just turn on, or is this something that requires more planning? Another thing, kind of the final thing I'll leave with you is all these different frameworks come with various different rules, and those rules might not be an exact fit for your organization. You might need to look at them differently. You might have compensating controls, which you need to describe as rules, and you can do that. You can clone these rules and edit them. My specific use case here is looking at a load balancer configuration rule. It is looking at the security policy of load balancers, and there's a default list there with a bunch of various different security policies. At SaaS, we have a slightly tighter standard. We only accept the most secure security policy that's available from AWS. So this rule doesn't really work for us. But it's really simple, even for me, to just clone the rule and then go and edit that rule and make another rule that matches our organizational security policy. And now I can see all the different resources that don't necessarily have the latest security policy applied. And when the latest security policy comes again, I can change this rule, and again, I get new findings, I can do that. And as I'm working through these findings, I can also set alerts. Okay, we've remediated this problem. This doesn't exist in our environment. If it pops up again, I want an alert, right? That makes sense. Now something's wrong. Someone defined a wrong load balancer policy, or our governance is not working. All right, final slide. This CSM dashboard is a very recent thing. I think it came in on Tuesday into the solution. We used to have a custom dashboard before, and I had a screenshot about that, but I like the Datadog version a whole lot more. So with cloud security management, you now have access to this dashboard. It's called a misconfigurations overview, and it's really nice. You can see your resource inventory displayed here. You can see misconfigurations by cloud provider, and if you're using tagging, which you should be using, you can do attribution on this dashboard as well. So if you go lower down on this dashboard, it'll show you, here's findings per team. This team has these criticals and so on. So that's really useful. Yeah, I should have mentioned on the previous slide actually that the rules are written in Rego. There's a link on the slide. You can get more information on that. And tagging, there's a link here on how to tag your resources. That's really important. That is an area where we have some work to do. So, but that makes attribution a whole lot easier. With that, I'll open up the floor for questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mikael. So before we go into the Q&A portion of this, let's just go ahead and give him one more round of applause for the great presentation. And if any of you in the room have a question, I will run the mic out to you. Otherwise, I have a couple of questions that came in through the back channels on the laptop there. So first question that I have for you from the internet is actually, how large is the team that interacts with CSPM or CSM at SAS?
Yeah, so we have about 140 developers working on this solution, and then we have an ops team of maybe 20, 30 people. And then we have some testers as well. So I'd say total, there's around 200 people, maybe a bit more, working with Datadog specifically. In CSPM, though, we reduced that amount. So I get the dev managers on the meeting. The call that we have is about 20 people. But we have dev managers, we have people from ops, sometimes security as well, infrastructure security might join in.
And a follow-up question to that, because that is a very large team. I don't know if you can share, the relative size of the number of workloads you're monitoring, and if you can tell us, are you monitoring just production, or are you also monitoring like staging and development environments for misconfigs too?
Yeah, so we're monitoring everything, and I think that's really valuable. You have to monitor everything so that you see progression through your different environments. And we're tracking, I don't know, tens of thousands of resources in Datadog. I think that's a ballpark figure.
Practically small for cloud, but large for your team, I'm sure. Any other questions from the room? Thanks for being here, everybody, and I hope to see you at another Dash.
Thank you very much.